Well, joining me now from Capitol Hill is House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Leader McCarthy, great to have you with us today. First of all, hope you and your family are staying safe. Let's start with some breaking news from this afternoon on President Trump's plan to reopen the economy. And he's saying he's willing to rely on governors and local leaders in making these decisions. A bit of a switch from his rhetoric earlier. What do you make of his change from talking about a largely federal response in the past week to now one that seems to be centered around the states themselves?
Well, the president the whole time has worked with governors very closely, those who are across the aisle. My governor from California, Gavin Newsom, has had very good things about the working relationship that he's had with President Trump. I was on a task force, he put me on a task force, bipartisan, of congressional members, of how to work together to open this back up. And on that call, there were Republicans and Democrats, and it was really amazing to me the number of Democrats who thanked the president for his action. And most of them came from New York, New Jersey, and California, and also thanked for how he worked with the local community and the governors. So it's something the president has been doing all along. And as we plan this, look, the virus is here. We did not invite it. We did not want it to come, but it's here now, and we're going to defeat it. But we have to do it together. And I think that's what the president's saying. We've got to make sure we open this country back up, but open it up in a safe manner as well. And not every place in the country is exactly the same. I mean, if you watch the increasing that we're able to do with testing, Scott Gottlieb had a very interesting fact out there now, that if you take per thousand, those in New York and Louisiana and other hotspots are actually tested more per thousand than any place else in the world. So there's drastic improvements. You will look at what the president has done with moving the Navy ships to California and New York, or building of the hospitals. And now you're seeing New York is actually sending ventilators to other states. So as other places become hotspots or not, I think those are decisions that will be made always within the locals, but with all the facts and working with the federal government to get the resources, but at the same time, the best decision-making process.
And Leader McCarthy, these new guidelines kind of underscore the fact that it might take longer to return to normalcy than was previously expected. In some cases, advising of social distancing measures in place through the end of the year. To that point, small businesses, consumers struggling at this point. The Paycheck Protection Program ran out of funding today. Specifically, Republicans and Democrats do agree that small businesses need this money, but Democrats have blocked additional funds, wanting to pair it with much needed hospital assistance, for example. How are you going to find common ground to get this through?
Well, all you have to do is say yes. So there isn't a difference of opinion. They're just Democrats who are saying no. Remember what we're asking here. The CARES Act, bipartisan put together. I know Nancy Pelosi held it up for a number of days, but eventually came out and got done. In there, we supply that small businesses, those with 500 employees or fewer, could actually provide for a loan. If they use 75% of that loan to pay their employees, and then the other can pay rent and utility, it becomes a grant, no longer a loan. And what happened is this has become so popular because our small businesses had to be shut down. It's a way of keeping people employed, keeping small business moving. $350 billion is already used. More than 5,000 banks, your community bank, your credit union, even fintech was allowed for the first time to supply resources here guaranteed by the government. We requested another $250 billion last week, not to change any policy. This is the one thing in the bill that had run out of money. There was $100 billion in there for hospitals, $30 billion in all already went out. There's still $70 billion left. For state government, there's $150 billion left. The only reason why this was requested, it was out of money. When those other items come forward, it would be the opportune time to talk and refund those. It's unfortunate today because members don't have to be here to have this passed. Last week we asked by unanimous consent. Unfortunately, Democrats showed up just to say no, to not allow it to happen. They did that exact same thing today. That means there are 700,000 small businesses that have loans in right now that are in jeopardy, or all those others that have not been able to apply. That's not all the Democrats were asking for. They wanted to change the application, instead of for 2 pages, to make it numerous pages. They wanted more information from the individual owners and others. I don't think in a pandemic that this is the appropriate time to do that or request that. This is a program that is working, that's keeping people employed, especially on a small business level. I think the only thing that has to do is say yes. Today they said no again for a second time. hopefully they'll change their mind, because we just had 22 million reasons in the last month to say yes, and I don't want to see more added to that number.
Well, among those stipulations that Democrats have asked for, Speaker Pelosi and her peers have said a portion of the PPP money should be reserved for businesses in underserved communities that don't have necessarily immediate access to banks, especially those women and minority-owned businesses. If these kinds of stipulations aren't added in right now, do you not foresee a risk of seeing existing chasms of inequalities grow across the country?
Sometimes what people say they're asking for is not actually what is happening. Because what Nancy Pelosi requested to make it more onersome on those small businesses. Was a small business owner. I started my first one when I was 20. I would not be able to survive right now. It was a deli. I know what it's like to make decisions at a kitchen table and whether you have to lay somebody off. This is a 2-page application. We are allowing fintech to loan you money. Something that, as you know, even in a smaller instance, even a smaller business would be able to have the money. Community banks, credit unions, we even go to nonprofits and to churches that could have this money as well. This is the broadest base we've ever seen. We have started out with 1,800 banks approved to loan the money through SBA to 5,000 today. We have processed more than 1.6 million small businesses loans already. So I'm not quite sure why the Speaker Pelosi is trying to hold it up further, because the only people that she's hurting is those that she's claiming to help. Now, I did see her on late night TV with some gourmet ice cream. I just wish, put it down. Let's solve this problem. We're not asking for any new policy. This is something that is successful. It is so successful it ran out of money in an unbelievable amount of time. So let's just replenish the money, because it's getting only to small businesses. So I don't understand the argument.
I do want to go back to this idea of the timeline around reopening economies. There's also a lack of widespread testing at this point. Researchers, biotech companies working on this right now. How do you kind of reconcile the need to want to reopen the economy quickly, but also the lack of available testing right now, especially in those demographics of need that I just highlighted?
Well, let me give you a few facts. I only want to open the government or business back up in a safe way. So all of America isn't the same. But if you want to talk about testing, look at where we are testing today. Abbott has a new ability to test and give you an answer in 10 minutes. They just approved a new one for saliva. Every day we're learning something new about this virus. We first have to understand, why are we where we are today? Because China lied to us. They lied to the entire world. And by what China has done to us, the deception of China directly led to more than 30,000 Americans dying. When it comes to testing, if you look at New York, Louisiana, the hot spots, per capita, we are testing more than any place else in the world. Italy, South Korea, and others. So our testing is improving every single day. More than 150,000 are going through it, and every day we're getting better. We're waiting for a new test to come through to be able to prick your finger to be able to know, had you already had the virus? Could you go back to work, be one of those workforces? So I think that we're going to have to look at different things. Yes, improving on testing, the tracking of the system. We're now finding, we've gotten some new data. If you look at whoop.com, they have a ability to around your wrist. They measure a lot of different activities within your body, but they're finding something very interesting. Prior to somebody getting it, a change in the pace of their heart and breathing. So you could have an early indication could tell you to stay home. I think a lot of these different things that we are complying together could be better on tracing, could be better on testing, and with that we can open the government back up. Not just government, but business. That's what we need to do to get America working again. And I think we could do that in a safe, healthy manner. It wouldn't be across the board everywhere across America, but we'll also have to understand, as we open it up, there could become a hot spot again. How are we able to treat that? We're getting more of the facilities that we need. We have New York now, who is requesting another 10,000 ventilators just a few weeks ago. Don't need them. A Navy ship that's no longer needed in LA, hasn't been used that can be moved someplace else. That we are much better prepared, because now we have the truth, because it came to other parts of the world, unlike China that had lied to us. And if you look at the Southampton study, the college, 95% of this never would have happened had China not lied. That is the real problem we have going forward.
We'll get back to China in just a second, but sticking domestically, we have seen some unrest among Americans, specifically protests breaking out in the Midwest over their own state's stay-at-home orders and the resulting economic impact. We're also seeing some figures in conservative media encouraging people to go out, rise up against what some call the tyranny of governors. If you represented a place like Michigan or Ohio right now, where we are seeing these protests, would you encourage people to follow the stay-at-home orders or to maybe go on protest, potentially putting themselves and others at risk? What would be your recommendation to your constituents?
I think the common answer is very easy: social distancing. But when you look at Michigan and what that governor is doing, it goes much beyond. You can't even buy seeds. You go into stores and they cross out things you can't buy. You can't fertilize your lawn. You could have social distancing where you're in your own yard as well. I just think it's gone to certain areas beyond of what you can do. They'll allow me to do certain things, to go to the store, but I can't worship. There's ways to apply social distancing to make sure that we stay safe and at the same time have certain essentials to continue on. It's interesting that one governor can pick and choose everything going forward. I think common sense, working together. Again, we are Americans. We will solve this problem if we work together. And I think everybody should be open to do that. And the first thing you have to do is listen to one another to be open to find common ground.
Leader McCarthy, you had highlighted your concern about China's reporting of their statistics. And let's not forget the big story prior to the pandemic was the U.S.-China trade war. You've spoken about the need to hold China accountable on that front, especially on points like intellectual property rights. How do you think China's reaction to this crisis and President Trump's resulting reactions to their reactions is going to impact further trade negotiations once this pandemic is over?
I'm less concerned how China reacts. China owes the entire world an apology. They owe all the families who lost a grandmother, a grandfather, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, or a child because they lied to the rest of the world. We did not have to go through this. There's some reports, if it's true, that it came from a lab, that it broke out through there, that was patient one. If that was and they allowed people to leave Wuhan and go around the world, that was wrong to all people around. Now that we found that China is allowed to control supply chains for us to even deal with this, America and the rest of the world needs to wake up. No longer should China ever be able to control our supply chain to our medicine, to our PP&E, to our critical minerals or others. This is a place that we have to change the course of history. President Trump has warned us about this when he was just candidate Trump. And I think he was proven right once again. Remember, we're not in this crisis because of some financial problem that somebody did. We're only in this crisis because China lied to the world. We now have thousands of people who have died, thousands of people who have been sick, an economy that went from the strongest that we ever had in this nation to being crippled, where 22 million Americans lost their job in 1 month, to sitting here in Capitol Hill where the Democrats deny us the ability to even help the small business, those who employ the most, those that we know by our neighborhoods. Even a small business comes to skilled nursing that cares for our seniors. They're being denied right now. We should stop playing politics. For one moment in time, we should put people before politics. And in doing so, we'll make this nation stronger and make sure we are never reliant on China ever again. And in doing so, you'd create more businesses right here at home.
Saying that we're never reliant on China again would be a very big shift from a production, manufacturing, supply chain standpoint for the U.S. I guess it's one thing to call out China and try to hold them accountable, but this would be a big change. Are you recommending that U.S. companies move their supply chains away from China and rely on other countries? And that should be maybe the next phase of what's discussed in a trade deal.
Yes, and we should always create an incentive to do it. The first place you should move your supply chain back to America. If you can't move it to America, let's move it someplace very close and an ally that works with us and believes in democracy, believes in openness, believes in transparency, and believes in honesty. We found with China that's not the truth. At any given moment, they had an opportunity to tell the rest of the world. No, they tried to influence the WHO to tell them that it wasn't human-to-human contact, that criticized our president, the WHO, when he denied China from coming into America. That is what we have to change. Honesty matters, accountability matters, and credibility.
Part of the reason for global supply chains for U.S. companies is to create efficiencies, keep costs down for consumers domestically. What would that mean for consumers' wallets here in the U.S. if there was more of that production brought in-house?
I think in America we've made our energy cheaper because we've invested and became energy independent with natural gas and others. We got a workforce of productivity beyond anybody else's. We got innovation better than any place in the world, regardless that China tries to steal our innovation as well. We can overcome this, we can be stronger coming out on the other side, and we can make sure that the next century is the American century, that will make the entire world safer because of it, instead of an idea that China continues to rise beyond these lies of what they created.
All right, we're going to leave it there. That's Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Leader McCarthy, thank you again for your time, and stay safe.
Thank you so very much.